Hi guys, it's Lee here from My Change. Today we're going to make a peach crumble. Okay, so it's the third one we've done. So we sort of do something a little bit sweeter. So basically, this is quite an easy one. Okay, and the reason why we're doing it is because I think we're only using 3 ingredients. 4 if you want to use some sugar into the crumble bit. You can really use any tin. Today we're going to be using some peaches that we've got here. It's just in a tin. But I just had a look in our cupboard, and we've also got some cherries. You could use maybe tinned apples, tinned pears, anything you really wanted to use that was in a tin. Or even if you've got some fruit that's maybe going off or on the turn, you could also cut that up and put that in there as well. Another reason is because a lot of the desserts that people have, maybe the shop bought stuff, they're quite high in sugar. So making your own sort of stuff, you can determine how much sugar you put in and what ingredients go into it really. So what we're going to do to start with is we're going to go through some of the equipment that you've got. But before that, what I want you to do is to put the oven on. So you can put the oven on somewhere around 160, 180 degrees centigrade. So that will basically give us enough time to warm it up. Okay, and then we'll cook the crumble for about half an hour. We're not going to stay online for the whole of the half an hour. So I'm just going to show you everything to do so it goes into the oven. And then after half an hour, maybe put a timer on or something, it should be ready to eat. Okay. So in the flyer that went out, we said about some equipment. Some of the equipment that we need is we need a spoon for sprinkling our crumble. And also we've got an added use for this as well. We want a big bowl. If we've got a small bowl, that's fine. It just makes it a little bit harder and maybe a little bit messier. We've got an oven-proof dish. Now, this is a bit too big for the crumble today, but this would maybe feed 6 people. So if you wanted to times the recipe by 3, you might want to use something like that. We're just going to use something really, really simple. It's just like a bread loaf tin. Now, we've put a little bit of foil in it, purely because it's an old tin and we don't want some of the metal to come off into the recipe. We've got a sieve. I've already done my peaches, but I'll give you a bit of time to do that. And some of the actual food that we need, you only need 3 things. We've got some flour, our peaches, and obviously we've got the butter. Okay, so if you didn't have butter, you could use margarine. Really, anything you've got in the house or in the fridge would be really good. If you're using butter that's in the fridge, just make sure you take it out for a bit because it's going to be quite hard. So let it sort of cool down to room temperature, and that should be quite easy to manage. So before we start, okay, a couple of things to sort of go through. If you've got long hair, tie it back, make sure it's all out of the way. If you've got an apron, now I haven't because I've done this recipe a few times. I'm not going to get really too messy. So if you've got an apron, it might be worthwhile to put it on. If you've got jewellery, rings, watches, anything like that to take off. Footwear, if you've got shoes on, tie them up. We don't want you tripping over laces while you're moving around the kitchen. Sleeves, I'm going to put my sleeves up, okay, because obviously we're going to be mixing some of the dough with the butter. So we want to try and keep our hands and arms clean. And also, one extra thing we'll need today, if you've got an oven glove, we can use that. But we're going to just use a tea towel, okay? That's obviously to wipe our hands, but also to take the tin out of the oven because it's going to be quite hot, okay? So, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to sort of get everything ready. I'm going to go and get the butter because it's been in the fridge, okay? So, give us 2 minutes and then we'll make a start. Good job. We got our butter. So we're using like a spread, so it doesn't have to be out of the fridge for too long. So first thing we want to do, I've already done this. Obviously we've got the oven on, is our peaches. It's a really, really, really simple recipe to do. So I've already taken the top off. So once you've taken the top off, you could use the syrup. Generally, there might be in syrup or there might be in water. We've got one that's in syrup, okay? So we've just drained that. I'm just going to put the screen down a bit so you can see a little bit clearer. So we've emptied the contents into the sieve, okay? And then we've got the juice in there. Now you could actually use this juice for a couple of different things. I wouldn't use it into the crumble because then it would go quite like bread-like and sort of like a hard. So we don't really want to use that. So once we've done that, we're going to put our peaches into our dish. It doesn't matter if you've got all of the juice out because a little bit of that syrup is going to maintain the sweetness. So what you can do is if you want to use your spoon, you can just make these peaches a little bit smaller if you wanted to. We don't really need a knife for this because the peaches are quite soft. Just going to go through and make some of these peaches smaller. Making them smaller is going to reduce the cooking time, but also it's going to, when we sort of bite into the crumble, it just sort of be a little bit more manageable because sometimes if you've got big bits of peach in there, they might fall off your spoon or something like that. So that's an option if you wanted to do it. Okay. If you wanted to sort of chop them up and stuff like that, you can do that. But because they're quite soft, you don't really need to do it. So we're going to add them to our tin. So they've been drained for quite a bit, so they haven't really got that much syrup in. And what you want to try and have is a tin that you're allowed to sort of spread them out at the bottom. I think this tin's probably a bit too big, if I'm honest. So we might have to add another layer of peaches in there. So if you had something even half the size, that might be better. And what we're going to do with that, you can put that in the oven for now. It's on a quite a low temperature. We don't really want to cook them, but once they're in the oven for maybe 15 minutes while we do our crumble, they might be a bit easier to squish, okay, to break up. They don't have to go in the oven, but it's just something else to keep them away. All right? So we've got that. So I'm not going to go and put them in the oven. I'm going to basically put them to one side. If you want to put yours in the oven, you can go and do that now. So to move on to the crumble, so we need a big bowl. We're going to use the same spoon. Okay, and we can just maybe take some of the syrup off that. And this recipe is for about 2 people. Okay, so that's about half a tin of peaches each. So for 2 people, we're going to use about 5 teaspoons of plain flour, tablespoons. 1, 2, 3. We can fill them up. Doesn't matter if they're really big. Okay. If you've got more crumble, you can always save it for another time, and then make another crumble once you've got another tin of fruit or something like that. Now we're just using plain flour. You could use wholemeal flour if you wanted to. If you've got an allergy, maybe people are gluten intolerant or something like that, you might want to use something like almond flour, coconut flour. You could use something like that. That's fine. And now we're going to use our butter. So we've done 5 tablespoons in there. We're going to do 2. Now the reason why we're going to do 2 is because we're going to start off with a little amount. We don't want to put too much of this in there because then we're going to have to add more flour. So we're going to do 2 tablespoons of butter. And then if we need to add more, we can add more. And the consistency we're looking for is something like a breadcrumb, okay? So if we squish them up, they will form, but they'll gently be knocked apart. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. So we're just going to take 2 spoonfuls. 1, put in there, and 2. So we've got 5 and 2. If you was doing double this, you'd maybe use 10 tablespoons of flour to 4 of butter. Okay. So you can try and do some work on the ratios there. So once we've done that, all we're going to do is get our hands dirty. Okay. And what we're going to do is basically use our fingers and thumbs, so the index finger, the middle finger, and the thumbs. Okay. So we're just going to start by getting our hands in and just doing this sort of motion. And you can see that the butter will start to not melt, but it will start to break up. So once you're comfortable with that, you can just do a little bit more at a time, like a rubbing motion. So this is the bit that takes a bit of time and it's probably the messiest. And we're going to keep doing this until the flour starts to turn a little bit yellow, like a little bit of a yellow tint to it. But also it goes like that breadcrumb texture I said before. Now you can start to see already with my dirty hand that some of the butter's now broken down. And we're just going to keep doing that until it's all even. And if we added sort of too much butter, what would happen is when we put it in the oven, the butter would melt and it would sort of be a little bit sort of liquidy on the crumble itself. So we don't want that. We want quite dry bits. So obviously when they go in the oven, they will crunch up. Now, as you can start to see, I've been doing this for maybe another minute or so. You can start to see how it's started to turn a little bit yellow. There's not really much white flour that I can see in there now. And what I was talking to you about was sort of making those balls or those sort of blocks that if you knocked them, they would fall apart. So I'll give you like that and just break it up easily. It can easily be broken up. So that's the sort of texture that we want. The more you do this, it's not going to get, like texture-wise, it's not going to go any different really. So you're just going to keep doing it. Now here, if you wanted to add a tablespoon of sugar, you could do that. Okay. The reason why we're not doing it is because we want to try it without sugar, see how we like it or not. If we feel like it needs sugar, then we can add it next time you make it. Okay. Because the whole point of these recipes is that we're trying to do them as healthy as they can be. And I'm sure a lot of us have a lot of sugar throughout the day. So when we're making stuff and like sweets, chocolate treats like this, it'd be good to sort of start without the sugar. So I'll sort of clean my hands to some degree. And just wipe them off. Now if you can see my crumble, it started to form the sort of crumbly sort of texture. There's sort of biggish bits, lots of smaller bits, but you can tell that's all mixed in. Okay? And that's that done. So the next bit we want to do is to go back to our spoon. This is where you would get your crumble back out the oven. So remember, I haven't put my crumble in the oven yet. I've got it just next to me. So all you're going to do is now use your spoon and sprinkle the crumble mixture over your fruit. Okay. Now you don't need to use all of it. Okay. What we're trying to do is just give yourself a nice layer, because if we have it too much, a layer of sort of crumble, it's probably going to go a bit soft underneath. So you're going to get a bit of crunchy layer, then it's going to go a bit softer. Sorry, my dog has just decided to go between my legs. So we're going to get that, and we're just going to sprinkle it over. Remember, if you wanted to add your sugar in, you could add the sugar in before, or even if you've missed it out, you could also add a little bit on top. Now, yesterday I made this, I used all the crumble. Probably didn't need to use all the crumble. You could probably save a couple of tablespoons. So, there's my crumble now. So you can see everything's covered. Just underneath, I've got the peaches just there. Okay, so try and get it in all the corners. And that's it, done. So that's your peach crumble. So what you want to do now is to go and put that back in the oven. Make sure you got your towel or oven gloves. Put it in. Now you're going to put it in there for about half an hour. Okay. Now that's going to give the crumble enough time. It's got to go all crunchy on top. What you could even do, I'm going to lift this screen up now. What you could even do is you could even put some oats, some porridge oats on top. That will go crunchy. Okay. And what you're looking for is to that sort of crumble mixture to start going a bit golden browny. Okay, now once that's done, because the peaches are already cooked, you don't need really them to soften up too much because they're all quite soft themselves. All you really want to do is just to make that crunchy. And then it's done. You would take it out, and you would serve it up. You could have with some custard, some yogurt, some cream maybe, whatever you feel would be best suited for it. So that's a pretty easy recipe, really, considering there's only 3 ingredients, 4 if you use sugar. So have a go. Maybe if you're using different fruits, send us the pictures, see how you're getting on. And all these sessions, they're funded by the co-op. So if you are a co-op member, live around Bexley, it's really good if you can back our cause. So you need to go onto the co-op website and membership and do it that way. And also we're on Twitter, Instagram, even email. You can also send us some of the work that you do. All right. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and please enjoy your dessert. See you later. Bye.